This is Camfrey15 back at it with another video for you guys, and I'm back with another Fairy Tail arc review. And yes, we are finally here. Finally, I've been waiting to talk about one of my favorite arcs in the entire series of this series of Fairy Tail, and that is the Grand Magic Games arc. Yes. It isn't a shonen anime or a shonen manga if you do not have your typical shonen tournament. So the Grand Magic Games arc. Man, if you remember my last video, which was talking about the Key of the Starry Sky, I remember saying at the end of that video, I said, the next video, we're going to get into the Grand Magic Games arc, which is pretty damn controversial for a lot of people. And the thing is this about this arc. Either this arc, you love this arc, or you hate this arc. Or maybe you're in the middle about this arc. Personally, I'm on the standpoint where I love this arc, and it is actually one of my favorite arcs. Honestly, to be honest, I love Tartaros, but honestly, looking back and doing my rewatch of the series, I really am, loving the Grand Magic Games arc a lot more than I thought. Now, when I first did it on my first watch, I loved it. But I'm starting to realize, damn, the Grand Magic Games arc is fucking great. I enjoy it. I love it. And listen, this is only part one. I'm talking about, and this video is going to contain only the part up to the start of the arc to the part when Natsu finally defeats Sting and Rogue all by himself. We're not even getting to the back half of this arc because this arc is literally split into two different parts, honestly, especially from the standpoint, by the time the first part ends, it's literally the end of like the entirety of season one of Fairy Tail before they make the whole studio change and the animation change and everything. So yeah. But the more I watch, I'm honestly maybe leaning to put this as my favorite Fairy Tail arc. I still have to watch the back half of this arc, but it's definitely hard to knock off Tartaros because I love Tartaros as well. But this is definitely a close second. And like I said, this is in my top 3 Fairy Tail arcs. Honestly, the Grand Magic Games in the grand scheme of things is a top 3 Fairy Tail arc in the series. It is hands down that good. And albeit people give reasons to why, they don't think this arc is good because, hey, there's some BS stuff in terms of win, especially in the back half of this arc where when the games finally conclude, you have that one moment, which I won't get into this video, but I'll get into in part 2, which will be next Monday. But as I was saying, the Grand Magic Games arc is one of my favorite arcs. And the premise behind the Grand Magic Games arc, or a quick summary, is the fact that canonically, after the events of the Tenro Island arc, obviously the old Fairy Tail members from Tenro, see that definitely the guild has seen better days, and definitely they're the worst guild in Fiore. And the one way to get back on top is to enter the Grand Magic Games, which Fairy Tail has participated in the past 7 years, but each and every year they came in dead last, and that's how they became the embarrassment they are after the time skip happens and stuff like that. So clearly, the old cast and crew, they get together, they train to get stronger, and they compete in a select number of games here, trying to overthrow the new #1 guild in Fiore, which is Sabretooth. But yes, I love this arc for many reasons. The characters, because there's a load of characters introduced, and then the moments. I kid you not. I know there's a lot of moments in a lot of other arcs, but Grand Magic Games, in its entirety of the arc, has amazing moments and some of the best moments in the franchise. Because some of the moments actually hit you like very damn hard and stuff like that. I love the story. I think again, what makes this arc like one of the best Fairy Tail arcs is the fact that the story is good and they kind of swerve you. You think, oh, this is going to be a battle tournament to determine who's number one. And by the time you get to part 2, it completely changes into like a whole worldwide, event where the world could end literally the night after the games are over. So yeah, but I'm gonna get into the story points, talk about some story points of how much I like those story points, and we'll get out of here. So the Grand Magic Games arc in its entirety covers manga chapters 258 to 340 and anime episodes 151 to 203. Now, for the video here, like I said, this is a part video. This is Grand Magic Games Arc Review Part 1. This is, like I said, going to cover from the start of the Grand Magic Games arc to the part when Natsu defeats Sting and Rogue, and then we're left off with the cliffhanger, especially if you're watching the damn anime, with the whole thing that's going on there. Now, in terms of the chapters, if you want to read this part, the chapters that I literally read through, that I'm talking, the points I talk about, the chapters of the manga you can read through is from chapters 258 to 299, while the anime episodes goes from 151 to 175. So there's your points if you want to see the first half of the Grand Magic Games arc. I love the fact that the Grand Magic Games arc, the first half is like a nice little intro to this, and then it's still crazy, but it's not as crazy as the back half. But anyways, let's get into this arc. So this arc kind of starts off with really 2 people, and obviously we see that it's Sting and Rogue, and they take down this one guild and stuff like that, and their names are the Twin Dragons. Now, they both talk about Natsu and Gaggio, the fact that they looked up to these guys as their heroes, essentially, as their idols, and they hear that they're back, and they're like, they think, essentially, they don't think they're hot stuff, and they don't look at them the same way that once they used to. And also, fun fact, before the time skip, not Sting and Rogue were actually the same age as Wendy. Fun fact, if you guys didn't know. Obviously, because of the time skip, they're 7 years older than Wendy. So yeah. Now we actually do cut over to the Magic Council a bit, and we see Lahar with Dorenbolt talking to one of the Magic Council members, talking about how the past 7 years have been pretty damn quiet, especially after the Tenro incident, with the fact that Zeref and Acnologia are now just out there in the world. They don't specify where they are at. They just say, well, they're somewhere out there. We just don't know, but hopefully they don't come to attack. But I feel like something crazy is going to happen, which starts in the back half of this arc, and then things, for the future of this series just gets crazier and crazier and crazier and stuff like that. Now, we cut back to Fairy Tail. We see Natsu actually fight Max, which is not one of the stronger members of Fairy Tail. And Natsu literally gets his ass kicked until he goes to Lightning Flame Dragon mode. And then Max is like, okay, I'll stop. And the one thing the old Fairy Tail, the Fairy Tail members who have stayed during the 7-year times could say, like, well, you guys are definitely weaker than, what we are right now and stuff like that. So yeah, and they bring up the fact, like, well, if you guys are stronger than us, how the hell did you guys get to where you guys are at? And they're like, well, we kept participating in these things and stuff like that, and yeah, we're not the number 1 guild anymore. The number 1 guild is Sabretooth. So yeah, apparently they have they have 2 sets of Dragon Slayers and stuff like that. And they make a mention of the fact that these 5 powerful wizards just started the guild up like that. Now, in the meantime, Makarov actually takes Gildarts to the guild hall and shows Gildarts, quote unquote, Fairy Tail's darkest secret, which is the Lumen Historia. And it's only a thing where, well, people can only see it if you're going to be a guild master. And Makarov's like, you see, Gildarts, Master Prek told me this and showed me this before I became master, so I'm going to do the same thing and everything. Now, obviously, Makarov makes the announcement about Gildarts being the next master, but Gildarts leaves a letter saying, well, guess what? Being master isn't my thing. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to resign as master, but Makarov, you're going to be the 6th master of Fairy Tail. Also, too, I'm going to reinstate Loxes to the Fairy Tail Guild and stuff like that. And essentially, he says, well, I'm going to go off doing my own business and stuff like that. And you guys do your best in reclaiming yourself as the top guild in Fiore. I know you guys can do it. And to say the least, that's the last time we see guild arts in the series till literally the Alvarez Empire arc, which is the last arc in the series. Yeah, it's damn near interesting. Now, I guess in the manga, there's like a special chapter where it kind of updates you with what Guild Arts is doing, and he sees the events going on in the Grand Magic Games. He ends up destroying a city, though, or a little tiny village because of it. But yeah, this is the last time. If you're watching the anime, it's the last time you see Guild Arts, literally till the 1-year time skip during and then in the Alvarez Empire arc, which is a long time. Now I understand why, because he's basically one Fairy Tail's OP character, and you can't keep him in there. Which I do like the fact that in the filler arc, of which I forgot to mention, I did like the fact they put him in that arc, and which essentially gives him in the Fairy Tail anime. He's a part of really 3 arcs: the Tanro Island arc, the Key of the Starry Sky arc, and then the Alvarez Empire arc, compared to the manga where he's only in 2 arcs and he's barely never seen of, and stuff like that. Again, makes sense, because if he were to still stick with Fairy Tail and entering the games, Fairy Tail would win, no doubt. So yeah, that was pretty much funny. Now, Natsu, Lucy, and Gray, and Wendy, to find a way to get stronger, go to Porla Yusuka. But Porla Yusuka chases them away, but then she ends up meeting them again. And the one thing we see Wendy, come off is she says she smells like Grandina. And we find out that Porla Yusuka is the Edalus version of Grandina. So at some point she was transported to Earthland, just like how Mystigan came to Earthland. And she's essentially the Edalus version of Grandina. She said she never met the Edalus versions of Ignial or Metallicana, and she's also said she never met the real dragon Grandina. She's only had telepathic speakings with her. And essentially, she gives Wendy this notepad, which came from Grandina, to tell Wendy certain spells like Milky Way and Shattering Light Sky Drill, which we see later used in this arc. Now, when obviously Natsu's gang gets back to the guild, they hear Romeo bring up the fact that, well, we can become the top guild in Fiore again if we just participate in the Grand Magic Games. Now, obviously, Makao is like, hell no, we're not doing that shit again. We're not doing that again. We've been in those things and we've been getting embarrassed about it. And Natsu's like, what the hell's the Grand Magic Games and stuff like that? And essentially they say, well, the Grand Magic Games has been held the past 7 years. And essentially it's really, to be honest, it's the Olympics in the Fairy Tail world. It's literally the Olympics where all these guilds come together to essentially see who the best guild in Fiore is every year, which, again, I like the concept. It's literally the Olympics in the Fairy Tail world, and stuff like that. Funny enough, we're just, the Olympics are happening right now, and stuff like that. Now, obviously, again, like I said, some members are against it because of past failures, but when Makarov looks more into it, and essentially somebody says, well, they do have a 30 million prize, so Makarov's like, 30 mil? We could use that money. And he's like, I don't care what you guys say. We're entering this damn tournament, and we're gonna be the best guild in Fiore, as well as we're gonna get our 30 mil. So yeah, so what happens is we find out the games are gonna take place in 3 months, and obviously everyone goes their separate ways for 3 months to go train. Now, Natsu's team consists of Natsu, Lucy, Gray, Urza, Wendy, Levy, Jet, and Troy. They all go to, I believe, Akane Beach, because that's what they did in that's what apparently they went in the Fairy Tail video game. Fun fact also too, if you do play the Fairy Tail video game, which I actually do play, which I actually have played the game, and I have like a few videos of the Fairy Tail game on my channel. I have not completed that. I don't know if I'm ever even going to get back and complete that game. It's kind of honest to God a drop series of mine, to be honest. The videos are there. If you want to see my gameplay of the game, I was like at some part in the Grand Magic Games arc. If you want to see me continue it, put that in the comment section if you want to see me continue that game. But the game goes through the Grand Magic Games arc and the Tartarus arc. So yeah. And then cuts a little bit into the Alvarez Empire arc a bit. So yeah. But anyways, as I was saying, they all go to the beach to go train. And we see a little training montage with every character. Now, Lucy, during her training, she's training to have more magic output so she can use more spirits and also have stronger magic and be able to have more reserves of magic in those certain moments where she's backed against the wall. Now, she talks to Capricorn, and they discuss the fact about one magic, our primordial magic, and Lucy essentially concludes that she thinks that it must magic, believe like she thinks the creation of magic believes it to be behind like love and everything, which is weird. Anyways, on the second day of training, Virgo kind of gets the gang's attention and says, "Oh, the celestial spirits world's in danger. We need you guys." So they bring them over to the celestial spirit world, and the thing is, it's just a party. They just celebrate in respect for Lucy and the others coming back from the 7-year break. So after the party's done, essentially Virgo's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to mention one thing. Time in the celestial spirit world is different compared to your time. So when when Natsu's gang gets back, they realize that they only have 5 days left before the Grand Magic Game starts, and they literally wasted 3 months partying for nothing." It's like some sort of weird hyperbolic time chamber BS, just the opposite. Because we know in the hyperbolic time chamber in Dragon Ball Z, 1 day in the hyperbolic time chamber is a count to a whole year. Here it's completely different. I'll just say this. My God, I would never go to the celestial spirit world if I knew just being there for only a few hours will take up 3 months. Anyways, it looks like obviously Fairy Tail, is definitely done, and they're like, "My God, we're fucked," and stuff like that. But they get a message from the returning Jalal, Ultir, and Meridi, who are all older. One, we find out Jalal has all his memories, so he's not an anemic type of guy. He has all his memories from when him and Urza were stuck in the Tower of Heaven as kids, and he remembers everything he's done up to this point now. And stuff like that. We find out he was broken out of prison by Ultir and Meridi, and we find out that the three together collectively over the last 7 years created an independent guild called Crime Sorcière, which they use this to destroy dark guilds and anything related to Xerath. And they use it as a way as they're atoning for what they're doing. And stuff like that. So I like the concept where they bring these characters back, these characters that were evil at one point, and they saw the errors of what they did, and they're like, "You know what? Let's do something good. Let's atone for our sins, and actually, let's try to make the world a better place, a safer place, so people don't fall into darkness like we did, and everything." Ultir also does confirm to Urza that, "Hey, it was my fault that I made Jalal go evil and made your life a living hell," and stuff like that. So yeah, now they have a request for Fairy Tail, and they say, "Well, during the Grand Magic Games, there's been this ominous weird magic that has always came during the games, and we feel like it has some sort of tie to Xerath. So we would like you guys to go investigate it for us while participating in the games. We'll probably be there on the side, but in order not to distract any attention to us, we'll do whatever we can. So just feed us the information you have and everything." Also, Ultir says, "Your payment could be this. Here. Clearly you guys missed out on a lot of time, so I'm going to unlock your second origin," which essentially we find out is essentially, like a reserve booster for them. Not only does the second origin power up, get obviously Natsu and the others stronger, but essentially it's a kind of power booster to make sure, like, you would think, that if you ran out of magic, well, guess what? Like, there's like theory, like, you have an extra reserve of magic power up in there. So that's what they all get. They fight through the pain. We get this very interesting scene, which continues the Urza ship, where we see that Jalal and Urza talk some more. Jalal tells Urza that he remembers everything, him killing Simon, the Nirvana incident, everything. And he even's like, look, if you want to kill me now, you can kill me. I understand why you wouldn't want to talk to me. And obviously Urza's like, I'm not going to do that. And obviously she asked Jalal, like, did creating crime source here, like, that's part of your atonement, so do that. But obviously Jalal, he's like, I don't know if I even should be here. I don't even know if I should stay alive and everything. But this kind of pisses off Urza. They get into an intimate scene later on where eventually she tells him, like, she thought she'd never see him again. And then we get probably one of the best, tease moments of the series in terms of shipping. And we see it to where Jalal and Urza literally almost kiss, which when on my first watch, I was like, did they kiss? But no, they didn't kiss. Jalal pushes Urza away, stating that he has a fiance. But he kind of indirectly says, I love you here to Urza, because Urza asked him, like, do you love her? And he's like, yeah, I do. And Urza just tells him, well, here's my request to you. Live for her sake. And stuff like that. Again, I took it as a way of an indirect way of Jalal telling Urza that he loves her, which I think is very sweet, and very adorable and very cute. And if you see my Fairy Tale 100 Quest videos, I'm still of the aspect of they better pay this off where Jalal and Urza kiss at the end of 100 Years Quest. I need to see that kiss fulfilled to have that paid off, because especially going into later, Ultir and Merity kind of teased Jalal for not kissing her, and they like, you can enjoy yourself every once in a while. But Jalal essentially says that since him and Urza walk different paths, she walks the light path and they have different lifestyles and they're in different positions as if they are in their lives. He has no time for love, which I think in his opinion, it makes sense, but it honest to God sucks. That's why I kind of say the Urza ship is kind of like, it's kind of a sad romance story, because it's like clearly these characters want to be together. But the reason why they can't be together is because they have all these problems going on in their own individual lives. And they're living very much different lives and stuff like that. So, but nice scene. I definitely enjoyed it. So we cut to the real whole thing. Eventually, the Fairy Tale members get to the capital city of Fiore, which is where the Grand Magic Games is held, and it's held in Crocus. Now, when obviously Fairy Tale first arrives, most of the civilians and people around them in the city are like, Fairy Tale, what the? They're integrating this thing again? These guys are terrible, man. Get the hell out of here. But, Natsu kind of gets a little heated, but Urza's like, yep, just ignore what they said, move on, we'll show them. Essentially, and I do like this whole approach where Fairy Tale, even the past members of Fairy Tale, are kind of dissed, and it's kind of the whole story point of like, just ignore the hate. Let's do what we need to do best and surprise these people to where they make us, where they fall in love with us again, which is essentially what they do. And stuff like that. So yeah. Also, Makarov's after registering them says, "Oh yeah, here's the team. And the team is Natsu, Lucy, Gray, Urza, and Wendy." Now, Lucy and Wendy are like, "Why couldn't you just put Gaggio or Loxes on the team?" And he's like, "They weren't here, so what's the point?" And I'm like, "Can't you still put them on the damn team?" Well, we find out a reason to why they don't put them on the team. Now, after Now we find out the rules of the Grand Magic Games. Or the fact is, the masters of the guild the masters of the individual guild cannot participate in the Grand Magic Games. Only members with the guild marks can be able to participate, and every event going forward essentially is kept a secret until the competition starts. And yeah, and the final rule is that all the members have to be in their hotels by 12 a.m. Now, obviously, the others go their own separate ways to look around Crocus. Gray with Juvia runs into Leon. Leon kind of throws out a challenge saying, well, guess what, Gray? If my team wins the Grand Magic Games, Juvia has to come over to our guild and stuff like that. And it's funny. And Gray's like, well, what happens if we win? And Leon's like, well, you have Juvia. And Gray's like, she's already in our guild. What the hell are you talking about? Honestly, I think the stakes should have been higher. I'd have liked it if Leon's like, well, guess what? You know, if I win, I get to go out on a date with Juvia. If you win, you get to do that. No, Gray at this point in time probably wouldn't have accepted that, but he would have been like, whatever, and stuff like that. Wendy and Carla, they eventually go on their own. We see they eventually get attacked later by a Raventail member. And Lucy, Natsu, Lucy, and Happy, they run into Sting and Rogue, and they're actually partners, Frosh and Lecter. And from the first interaction, we clearly, I love that Mashima builds up the fact that, you know, the moment we see Sting and Rogue interact with Natsu, moment they start throwing insults and these cocky things saying, quote unquote, we're true dragon slayers from the standpoint, we actually killed our dragons, which not only pisses off Natsu, and stuff like that anymore. And essentially he's like, and they keep saying like the old era dragon slayers are dead. And he's like, listen, and and even Sting and Rogue tell him, that's mostly Sting, and Sting and Rogue's like, you can't even consider yourself a dragon slayer. You bitches couldn't even defeat fucking Acnologia. And honestly, Lucy's like, you do know Acnologia was crazy strong. And Sting is like, please, we would have killed that guy in an instant. And I love the fact that Majima builds the heat up, that quote-unquote wrestling term, heel heat, from the jump. When you see these characters first interact with our fairy tale characters, you just straight up hate them. I remember first watching this arc for the first time, I hated Sting and Rogue for passion. And it's like, and I like it to where you hate, this is where you hate them so much, because they're so damn overconfident, they're so cocky, and it's like, I want to see these motherfuckers get their asses beat. Sorry for my cursing, but listen, if you're watching this arc for the first time, that's how you feel when you come across Sting and Rogue when Natsu meets them for the first time. You want to see Sabretooth get their ass kicked and, you know, get what's coming to them. Which, when it does happen, it is funny. Like, literally, I was literally so into this arc on my first watch. When they finally lose and Fairy Tail wins the entire Grand Magic Games, which is in part 2, I literally was like, yeah, let's go. So I got turned up pretty much and everything. So yeah. Also too, they make a mention that they're third generation dragon slayers because they were taught dragon slaying magic by their individual dragons. Also, they also have dragon lacrima infused inside them, just like how, well, Loxes and Cobra are and stuff like that. So yeah, anyways, getting in preparation for the first challenge, they all get back to the inn, but obviously they ask where Wendy's at. Lazana and Elfman come in, and essentially they ask Lazana and Elfman to go look for Wendy, but 12 o'clock arrives, and we find out that, well, guess what? The first challenge is that each guild has to get through the Sky Labyrinth, which essentially is, my God, I have a lot of hiccups. Excuse me. To get through this whole maze, and the first 8 teams to get past the finish line are going to be in the main tournament of the Grand Magic Games. The reasoning behind that is, well, they had a total of 113 guilds for this year's Grand Magic Games arc, and stuff like that. So yeah. Now, obviously, because Wendy's not there, Elfman's like, well, I'll fill in for her. So they go up into the Sky Labyrinth, and the thing is, eventually, it was a pretty unique thing there. It was just a interesting maze. Eventually, they completed. They all think they came in first, but we find out that they just barely passed because they came in 8th place, and they were the last team to qualify for the main tourney. Now, Happy and Lozana eventually find Wendy and Carla in the castle courtyard grounds. And again, like I said, we later find that they were attacked by Raventail. Now, the next day, it is the start of the main Grand Magic Games tournament, and we see the teams are announced. So we have Fairy Tail, Team A. Then we have Quattro Cerberus, Mermaid Heel, Lamia Scale, Blue Pegasus, Raventail, which is obviously led by Makarov's son, Ivan Drayar. We have a Fairy Tail Team B because we find out that in this year's Grand Magic Games, the committee essentially allowed to where the same guild can bring in two teams. So that's what Makarov did. And this team consists of Mara Jane, Loxes, Juvia, Gaggio, and Mystigan, which is Jalal pretending to be Mystigan. And then honestly, we have Sabretooth. So yeah, now this is when we get into the first games and everything and stuff like that. Essentially we find out kind of the rules. They're going to be over the 7 days. There's going to be competitions with one of those days being an off day. And the thing is, the first 4 days, the thing is, all these days, they're going to start off with a challenge, like a game. And then after that game, they're going to have typical fights, your typical one-on-one fights and everything. And that persists for the thing. Obviously, the guild that wins these competitions are going to get the most points. And if you lose, you get literally next to no points. So yes, it's a pretty interesting tournament like setting. I like the fact that they make it different than typical, tournaments. Yes, they still have those 1v1 battle aspects, but I like how they start off like the, day with, we're going to give you a challenge that you have to do and you have to overcome that gives some variety in the games, which I think makes the Grand Magic Games tournament as a whole so much different than your typical shonen tournaments you see where it's just really about fighting and stuff like that. That's what I like about Hunter x Hunter. It was kind of a tournament type of thing there, but different in its own way there and stuff like that. So the first game on the first day is this game called Hidden, and essentially it's hide and seek. The participants in it are Gray, Juvia, Leon, Rufus, Beth, Noel Pudding, Eve, and Jagger. And essentially the rules of this game is the fact that they got to find their opponents and hit them. But the only thing is nobody knows where they are because there's different copies of them. And the thing is, you get 1 point if you hit the right person, but you lose a point if you either get hit yourself or you get the wrong person, or you hit like this fake copy and stuff like that. So yeah, now Gray's looking around, and the thing that happens here is eventually Gray and Juvia both kind of lose big time. One, because No Pudding is going after Gray and Juvia individually, and then you have Rufus, the Sabretooth member, eventually take out everybody with a powerful magic spell using his memory make magic, and essentially Sabretooth wins the game and literally wins. So yeah, now Gray walks off. He's clearly pissed off because he got pretty much embarrassed, and he swears that he's going to get Rufus and No Pudding back for what they did. Now, this is when we start the fighting. We see Lucy go up against Flare Corona, who is another member of Raventail. And for a majority of this fight, Lucy is kicking Flare's ass. That is until Flare threatens Asuka and threatens Alzax and Biska's daughter, Asuka, literally saying, now I watched the English dub version, she's like, I'll break her fucking neck. And I'm like, I remember on that, this is my rewatch. I'm like, she's gonna kill a kid? And essentially because of it, Flare is like telling Lucy, don't make even one single move. Hell, you play the video game, you're supposed to just defend in the game. You can't do anything, otherwise you can't progress the damn story or anything. And stuff like that. But thanks to Natsu, he essentially beats Dan. He stops what's happening. Lucy goes back on the offensive, and then she pulls out Gemini, and they try to do the spell Aranometria, which was a thing they did back in the Irrational States arc. this time, unlike Hibiki helping out Lucy to give her the ability to use it, here, Lucy can use it at will, essentially. And funny enough, again, another mention of the game, this is Lucy's most powerful spell at this point in time in the story. Hell, in the video game, it literally takes away 90, magic power, like 96 magic power, which at that point in the game when you're playing as Lucy, that's literally her entire magic power, tank you can use. The only other thing I hate about that move in the game is you literally have to sit through the damn cutscene every time you use the attack. But she uses the attack, and it looks like it's about to hit and finish off Flare. But one of Raventail's members gets involved and essentially cancels the spell to make it look like, well, Lucy, to the fans, it makes it look like Lucy couldn't control the spell. And obviously, like at the start of the games, the fans just boo, the fans boo obviously Lucy, saying that Fairy Tail still sucks, but Natsu comes up on Lucy, essentially saying that, yeah, we have 0 points, but we're gonna make this the greatest comeback ever, and stuff like that. So yeah. Now we cut over to in the background of the fight, and we see the Night Squadron chief Arcadios. He talks about the battle, stating that this matured fruit is ripening and it's going to be completed in a year. And he's like, don't worry, Lord Zeref, just sit back and wait. I'll be waiting for you. And the more I talk about Arcadios in this arc, essentially, Arcadios comes across as the guy who looks like he's going to be the main antagonist of the entire Grand Magic Games arc. But we later find out at the end, thanks to Yucano, that he's actually trying to find a way to save the world, not trying to destroy it where it looks like. But I do like the fact that they kind of do a bait and switch type of thing where he's given these shady ass scenes and these different looks and these evil laughs to make it look like he's the bad guy. But by the end of part 1 of this arc, you later find out he's trying to do all this to save the world, apparently. So yeah. Now we get some other fights. Jalal actually fights Jura, and it's pretty much an even fight, but when Jalal looks like he's about to blow his cover, it's thanks to Ultir using Merity's sensory link magic to kind of embarrass Jalal and stuff like that. It was a funny moment, so yeah. Anyways, Fairy Tail goes back to the inn after the failed day, and they said they'll come back. Now, this is when we meet Bacchus and everything. Now, we also see that the King of Fiore tells Arcadios, oh, I want to see Bacchus versus that one Fairy Tail member that can transform. So yeah. Now, also too, we get a Carla can see into the future moment, and she sees that and now she tells us poor Yusuka, and she says she saw a white knight, a magical array, seeing the castle of Mercurius crumbling and being destroyed, and she says she sees Lucy singing, but I don't know, it's portrayed in the manga, but in the anime you can clearly see Lucy's freaking crying. And for some reason, just like I said before, and I'll say it again, when Carla gets a vision, a premonition, she doesn't tell anyone because we want to keep you in suspense. She tells the damn Fairy Tail doctor, but she doesn't tell anybody else. There's a part later in this arc where Lucy comes into the friggin' infirmary, and poor Yusuka's asked after Lucy leaves, poor Yusuka's like, did you want to tell Lucy about your vision? And Carla's like, no, because I don't believe it. And I'm like, most of your predictions have come true. Why the hell would you not want to tell her? Again, I hate that. I hate it when, I hate that story point in any different damn show, where you have a character be able to see the future and clearly not tell. Now, I know it's to build tension and stuff like that, because if you just actively have the story point go, oh, the character tells, hey, I saw this thing in the future and you were somehow involved. I don't know the grand scheme of things, but you were involved somehow. It would kind of ruin the plot, and yeah, so Okay, I guess I understand. So yeah. Anyways, we cover the second day of the Grand Magic Games, and the challenge to start the day off, is this game called Chariot, which essentially is a race. Now the contestants in this game are Natsu, Gaggio, Sting, Bacchus, Ichia, Yuka, Risley, and Kurabe. Now, obviously, everybody else finishes fairly easy, but the one thing is, since this is a movie platform, the Dragon Slayers have a major problem, and that's really the problem with Sting, Gaggio, and Natsu, and stuff like that. And essentially, even though they're crawling and everything, Sting's kind of like, why are you guys trying so damn hard? And essentially Natsu's like, well, too bad. We're doing this so hard because we're doing this for our guildmates that the past 7 years had to suffer all the embarrassment, all the mockery they had, everything that's come to them the past 7 years. We're going to take this upon ourselves and do this for them. That's why we're here. We're here to do it for them. I honestly like this moment a lot because it goes to show you that the Fairy Tail members that were stuck on Tenro literally are doing this for the members of Fairy Tail that were enduring the pain and suffering over the 7-year time skip. It also shows the differences in the Sabretooth and Fairy Tail Guild from the standpoint of how they operate. Because we see that Natsu and Gaggio were willing to finish the race. And even Gaggio makes a point to Sting like, it don't matter. Even if it's 1 point, we'll take it. It's better than 1 point's better than nothing. And we see Gaggio and Natsu finish out the race. While compared to Sting, he's like, man, screw this, whatever. We'll find ways to get points later on and stuff like that. So you have the different dynamics to where you see that Sabretooth's so damn overconfident and cocky, which again leads you to hate them more, thinking like you guys should give it your all and everything. So yeah, we get some battles. Kurabe versus Toby. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I'm just gonna skip this. Now, a very underrated fight in the Grand Magic Games arc is the Elfman versus Bacchus fight. Now, I find it funny how the king is like, I didn't want Elfman, I wanted Urza to fight Bacchus. But anyways, we know Bacchus essentially is like the level of an S-class wizard. And essentially, he fights essentially drunk, and him fighting drunk gets him stronger using magic really through his palms. And everything. And essentially, the thing is, Bacchus throws on the challenge. He's like, how about this, Elfman? I want to throw you a challenge. If I win, guess what? I get to have your sisters Mira Jane and Lazana all to myself tonight. And I'm like, well, hey, honestly, it's a smart strategy. Why have one of the Straw sisters when you can have both of them at the same time? They're both hot. They're both big-chested. They're both sexy. Why not have both? Personally, if you ask me, I'm definitely having that. I'll take the twinsy. I'll take both of them. I'll be like, what's up? So yeah, so obviously Elfman here is fighting for not only like what obviously the other members of Fairy Tail are doing, but he's also mostly fighting for his sisters. And here he kind of gets his ass kicked here and everything. And essentially it gets to the point where Elfman gets back up and he's like, how about this? This is my challenge. If I win, you're going to have to change their name to Quattro Puppy. And eventually he transforms into his lizard man's form. And essentially it's a fight of endurance of if Bacchus can continue his attack and if Elfman can take it. Eventually you have Elfman being able to take Bacchus's attack, and Bacchus acknowledges that the fact that you're a real man, dude. You are what you say you are. And Elfman wins. And I really do love this moment because this is a moment where we don't see much of Elfman in this series. Like, really, the one Elfman, we get like the Elfman moments. We mostly get Elfman moments, no, really, in the Phantom Lord arc, and then in the Tenor Island arc, and then this moment. And then after that, other than him being under control of Tartaros, he really doesn't get any featured moments after that, really, where, you know, he's kind of in a way helping out Fairy Tail. And again, that's the one thing I like about the Grand Magic games. They find a way to use all these characters from the Fairy Tail Guild and make them, feel important in what they do. I definitely like this. I think Bacchus versus Elfman is a very underrated fight. It's not much of a fight, like I said, it is, but I think it's a very underrated, match. But it's a very great moment, because this starts the whole trend of Fairy Tail starting to win more matches than lose it. And I really do like this moment and stuff like that. So, yeah. Now, in the meantime, during the Bacchus versus Elfman fight, Natsu wakes up after the whole chariot race because of his motion sickness. He sees that Wendy, Carla, and poor Yuka were taken. He eventually catches up with the people that were taking them away. And apparently you find out that they were sent by Raventail, apparently. And really the girl they were supposed to go after was Lucy. And they were just mostly sent by Arcadios and stuff like that. And essentially Arcadios, he goes on to say the ones responsible kind of pissed him off and about his plan failing, and he says he wants to capture Lucy for Zer's Eclipse plan. Now, we get the next battle, and we get a fan service battle between Jenny and Mara Jane, and let me just say this. This literally turns from a bikini contest to a legit contest where it involves damn near every, buddy participating in the Grand Magic games. I thought it was a funny moment. It's currently morally played up for comedic moments. Mostly, you have some people who will probably be turned off by this. I enjoyed it. It's for comedic moments. But you get the one part where they're all having wedding dresses and everything. You kind of get a funny, nice classic line where between Natsu and Lazana of the fact that where Lazana's like, hey, you remember how I said that we would always get married and stuff like that together? And then you just have Lucy kind of bumping in to Natsu, which essentially, again, is another Nalu moment, essentially confirming that eventually those characters will hook up and get married eventually. So yeah, eventually it turns into a fight because Mara Jane throws down the gauntlet and she's like, well, guess what? Here is the challenge. Whoever wins this match, or whoever loses this match has to essentially pose naked in the next Sorcerer Weekly magazine next shoot. And Mara Jane utterly defeats Jenny with utter ease. And now Jenny has to pose naked in a magazine cover. Now, if this ever happened in real life, holy shit, man. Would that probably be the most sold magazine? Now, it'd have to be based on what actress in real life it would be. If you're telling me it's like a bomb-ass actress like a Jennifer Lawrence or a Scarlett Johansson or a Megan Fox, and you're telling me, oh, they lost this bet and they have to pose in this magazine shoot essentially butt-ass naked, I think a lot of guys would buy that magazine. Yeah. So obviously you have so many guys like, oh, God. Again, listen, if I wish I was in the fairy tale world because trust and believe, I would have got me that too. Now, the last battle of day 2 involves Yucano versus Kagura. And this, bet Yucano throws down is the fact that the loser will have to lose their life. Kagura's like, all right, fine. And we find out that Yucano is a celestial wizard like Lucy, and the fact that she has the 2 last remaining zodiac keys that Lucy doesn't have. She also has a 13th key called Orpheus. So yeah, but this fight is kind of a one-sided fight, and Kagura utterly destroys and humiliates Yucano without even drawing her sword. Yeah, it's freaking crazy. Now, Arcadios, he's like, a second celestial wizard! Holy shit, my day is made! So he's over there happy and everything, and he's like, my plan's coming to fruition. I don't have to worry about one. There's another one out here. I can use both of them at the same time. So yeah. Also too, I remember first watching this arc, I was literally like, Yucano looks awfully damn similar to Angel. I wouldn't, and I remember watching this, I'm like, what if they're related in some way? I'm gonna keep that to myself till it's later revealed. I saw Yuka and I was like, she literally looks like she's Angel's little sister or something like that. Mostly too because the flower in her head is a dark navy blue, like Angel's band over her head was a dark blue, and I'm like, they have to be related. Again, I'll bring that up later, and stuff like that. So yeah. Now after day two, the standings are Raventail's in first and Fairy Tale is still in dead last. Now Jalal and Urza talk a bit, and they mention the fact that nothing has come up yet. Eventually, after that discussion, Urza runs into Miliana, who's joined Mermaid Heel, and we find out that one, Urza gives credit to Miliana, saying that Kagura is really good and stuff like that, and she's strong. And Miliana's like, oh yes, of course, she's strong. She's the strongest wizard in our guild. And Urza does ask Miliana, why does Kagura not draw her sword? And we find out that, well, guess what? Miliana's still pissed off at Jalal for the Tower of Heaven incident. Also from the standpoint that apparently Kagura wants to kill Jalal for some sort of reason, and she won't draw her, and the only person she's going to draw her sword on is Jalal. We find out in part 2 of the Grand Magic Games arc why she wants to kill Jalal. And again, I'll keep that to myself till next Monday, and stuff like that. Now, the Sabretooth Hotel, the Sabretooth Master Genma essentially holds a meeting and essentially tells his guild, your performance in today's Grand Magic Games competitions was pathetic, disgusting. He essentially gives Sting kind of like a slap on the wrist. He's like, look, next time don't disappoint me. But for Yucano, he literally embarrasses her. One, he literally throws legit grapes at her like she's garbage off the streets and saying, you bet your damn life on the line, you freaking got your ass handed to you. You make a disgrace to Sabretooth. So then second, after throwing grapes at her, throwing food at her, literally, he then tells her, take it all off. So he literally forces Yucano to strip down in front of everybody in the Sabretooth Guild. So Yucano's literally butt naked here. And this is where it's kind of fucked up, to be honest. And the last thing he's like, I want you to erase the Sabretooth Guild mark and get the hell out of my guild and never come back. And he literally forces her to erase her guild mark and leave the guild. And we know getting rid of a guild mark or erasing your own guild mark is kind of a sign of embarrassment and disrespect. And it was kind of fucked up. And we see that Sabretooth is a guild that doesn't treat its members like, hey, all different dudes. We see all and every other guild kind of be pretty respectful to other members. Sabretooth is kind of like one dude running the guild as like a dictator. So yeah. And you even, have a talk between Sting and Rogue after the incident, and Rogue's like, I don't know if that was particularly a good thing. Like, I don't know if I like what Master did. And Sting's like, well, guess what? Yucano didn't do her job, and hey, that's your problem. And guess what? Maybe she was just too much of a weakling to be in this guild, which again, it's kind of fucked up. And again, gives you more heat on Sabretooth to where you hate them and you want to see their asses get kicked. So yeah. Now after this, Natsu, Lucy, and Wendy all run into Yucano just on the street. She's already in like street clothes and looking like she's about to leave. Now she ends up talking to them, and essentially Yucano tells Lucy, look, here, I'll give you my Celestial Spirit's keys. I'm now, meant to be a Celestial Spirit. You're clearly stronger than me and skilled than me, and you're better than me, so here. But Lucy is like, I don't want your spirits. Like, you made bonds with your spirits. I don't want them. So keep those and stuff like that. And obviously, Yucano's like, oh yeah. She also tells him that, yeah. Oh, well, she tells that to Natsu, but she's like, oh yeah. This one chick named Minerva, yeah, she's gonna come, and she's one of Sabretooth's strongest members in her guild. So she just leaves and she says her goodbye. Now Natsu catches up with her. He apologizes for the way he's treat her, and he's like, I guess what? Maybe not all Sabretooth members are all that bad. I'm sorry for judging you guys and stuff like that. Or essentially judging her, really. But that's when, obviously she starts breaking out in tears, and Natsu's like, why the hell are you crying? And that's when Yucano tells Natsu, well, I was embarrassed. They made me strip down, and now I'm kicked out of the guild. And Natsu gets pissed off, and he's like, yeah, I may not be able to, I may not care about your guild's problems, but your guild should not be doing that. So we get one of the best Natsu moments. This is definitely a top 10 Natsu moment, where Natsu literally gives no Fs, crashes the Sabretooth guild, and he's like, all right, Sabretooth, where's your damn master? And Master Gemma shows up, and he's like, what do you want, you weakling? And Natsu's like, I heard you kicked out one of your members because she lost one freaking match. How petty can you guys be? And Natsu's like, you know what? How about this? I'll kick your ass right here and now. And when I beat you, you're going to be the one that's going to be getting out of this guild. And literally, it looks like Natsu might actually beat him. But Minerva gets involved. And essentially just like, attack us any further. Your little boy friend, your little cat friend's going to get hurt. So, yeah. And when Natsu leaves, Natsu essentially tells Sabretooth, listen, the way you guys treat your guild isn't the way a guild should be treated. You guys should treat your guild mates like their family and stuff like that. Again, showing the difference between Fairy Tail and Sabretooth. And even, Rogue's like, yes, it's Natsu. Now, he says this in his head after Natsu leaves. And Stingy, he even agrees. He's like, yes, maybe that's how we should be. But in this guild, we're not like that. Which, again, still pretty messed up and everything. So we get to the third day. And the third day of the game, and the third game of day 3 is this game, or this challenge, or this game called Pandemonium. Essentially, it's a game who defeats the most monsters. And the thing is, you kind of have to use a little bit of strategy in this whole thing, which makes it smart. So Urza gets the first go, and she's like, well, guess what? All right, 100 monsters? I'll take them all out, which makes the most sense. Do it. And again, another great moment in this arc alone, a great Urza moment, definitely top Urza moment, where she literally takes down all the monsters in this one thing. And it literally gets everybody in the crowd to acknowledge, like, holy shit, Fairy Tail ain't playing. They're actually legit. What the hell have we been hating them for? And it's like, I don't know why the people would be hating them in the first place, because it's like their best wizards were gone for 7 years. So you get this moment where she's taking out every monster in there, even one S-class monster. And after she defeats them, it literally not only gains the respect of the fans in the arena, but the respect amongst the other guilds, and saying like, that's why she's Titania. That's why she's Queen of the Fairies. I was like, oh yes, don't sleep on my girl Urza's name, because we know Urza's a badass. So yeah, but because of Urza completing the game, they have to completely do a different game, and the rest of the combatants, which are Jura, Kana, Miliana, Hibiki, Nobarli, Orga, and Obra, all have to do this thing of who can show off the most magic power, which is kind of like a similar thing to the one Dragon Ball Z little punching bag thing in the Majin Buu tournament, when, if you remember, if you watch Dragon Ball, they had to punch the thing to scout, their power level to move on to the next round. It's something like that. And Kana comes out the winner after good valiant efforts by Orga and Jura, and we find out that Kana has the ability to use Fairy Glitter yet again, thanks to Mavis giving her the abilities. And I forgot to talk about it. Yes, Master Mavis is in this arc, and from this point on, this is when she kind of becomes an integral part of the story in a way, even though she's a ghost. The thing is, only the Fairy Tail members, people who are in Fairy Tail, can only see Master Mavis. So essentially, when there's other people around and you saw a Fairy Tail member talking to Mavis, essentially to people, it looks like they're talking to fucking air. But I like the fact that they bring up Mavis in here, because I like her character. I think she's an adorable, cutesy type of character. But again, this starts her whole, story arc of why she's here to watch what the fairy tale wizards are doing and everything and stuff like that. But yeah, so clearly we get Fairy Glitter kind of wins, and essentially Fairy Tale's like getting put on top here. So this is when we get to the battles, and we get some other petty battles and stuff like that. And we cut to this one battle where it's Loxes versus Raventail, Alexi. And essentially, when the fight starts, it's your typical fight, but we find out that really the real Loxes and Alexi are in this different field, and Alexi's using illusion magic. We later find out that Alexi is actually Loxes' dad in disguise, which is Ivan. And essentially, he asks Loxes, like, look, I want information on the Lumen Histoire, which is Fairy Tale's biggest secret. And obviously, knowing the fact that Fairy Tale is clearly Loxes' family, and even Ivan is like, come on, you wouldn't hurt your old man. I'm your father. And Loxes is like, it don't matter. Any enemy of Fairy Tale is an enemy of mine because Fairy Tale is my family. And he also says, like, I understand why the old man, Makarov, kicked you out of the guild and stuff like that. And eventually, Loxes literally fights not only Ivan, but the entire Raventail guild and defeats them easily. And after defeating them, the illusion goes away, and everybody sees that Raventail has been defeated, and the fact that they cheated, and they are eventually disqualified from the remaining tournament for the next 3 years. And to say the least, that's the last we ever see of Raventail, other than Flare. Now I'm gonna go take a quick break to go rest my voice, and when I come back, I'm gonna talk about probably one of the few things I hate in this arc, and that is how Raventail was handled in Ivan Dragar being the worst character, the worst villain in Fairy Tale. Okay. We're talking about one of the few things about the Grand Magic Games arc I absolutely hate. And that's kind of how they handled Raventail. Okay, listen, typically when you have a tournament arc, you do have a fodder character. And the fodder characters in this arc are Quattro Cerberus, or aka now Quattro Puppy. After Raventail is disqualified, they essentially become the jobbers of the tournament, where they just lose every damn matchup going forward. So, one, there's no point in talking about them again. But one of the things I kind of hate is Raventail. Now, I like Raventail in this arc from the standpoint they're a thing that gets in Fairy Tale's way, and it's an obstacle they have to overcome. In some cases, I kind of don't like how, well, it was waste of buildup. Raventail, to me, in this arc, comes across as side antagonists to this arc. They're just a group of people that are just getting in Fairy Tale's way to where you want to see Fairy Tale finally win against these guys. And that's what Loxes does. In reality, the main antagonist till you get to the future rogue stuff is really Sabretooth. They're the main antagonists. Raventail is the side ones. And Ivan Dragar, I don't care what anybody says, is the worst Fairy Tale villain of all time, if not the entire series. Yes, are there other ones up there? Yes. But my God, talk about wasted potential. I'll say this. If you don't believe that Ivan's the worst Fairy Tale villain of all time, I'll be okay with you saying that. But would I say Ivan is the one character with the most wasted potential of character? Yes. We literally get introduced to Ivan back at the end, or back during the Battle of Fairy Tale arc, when it looks like Gaggio's working for him. Well, they kind of just pay off his kind of story here in a way of the fact that, well, You know, the old man told me the reason why he never attacked you back is because you didn't attack Fairy Tail when we were gone. Essentially, Lox is saying, like, it seems like you must still have a heart out there for Fairy Tail there. And after that, he's gone. He's gone. Which Raventail is kind of pointless too. Other than Flare, the rest of the Raventail guild is pointless. After they lose, the one little sniveling little thing creature is like, we'll get you back. Never brings that story point back up again. Ivan's gone for good. They don't do the Minerva side plot. If you know, Minerva eventually goes over to the dark side because she's that, you know, obsessed after trying to beat Urza. I don't know why they didn't kind of do the same story where maybe Ivan either joins the Tartarus Guild later on, or maybe hell joins the Alvarez Empire and tries to get revenge on Fairy Tail since, hey, that's what the whole plot was, to attack Fairy Tail and get to where Xerath needed to get to in that arc. No, they didn't want to do that. Don't bring him back. The only character they bring back is Flare to tie her character up and finish up her character. Was the only character that actually had a character development, anything. Ivan, kind of there. He kind of got his development really mid-battle of Loxes. Other than that, nothing. I hated this. I hated this. What was the point of introducing Ivan if you weren't going to plan on using him for the future? Yes, he was just the means to an end to get them to the point where it gets Raventail disqualified because, you know, Ivan will use any tactics to take out Fairy Tail. But what the hell? After that, we don't see Ivan at all. I'm sorry. That sucked. That actually pissed me off more, realizing watching it the second time around than I picked it up in the first go around. Ivan's just a wasted character. Wasted character. Also, another wasted character we could have got a wasted. We could have got maybe a filler arc. Fairy Tail versus Raventail. Maybe that should have been the next arc. Other than that damn Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc, that was bullshit, and I hated that shit. My God, I hated that arc too. Don't believe me. If you want to see me rant on Fairy Tail, I'm gonna rant on that arc. That should have been the arc that replaces that arc. Honestly, I would have been down for a Fairy Tail versus Raventail battle arc compared to that Eclipse Celestial Spirits filler arc. Wasted character. I don't want to talk about it anymore because I love this arc and I don't want to get pissed off talking about one single thing that I believe was a wasted character in Ivan. They could have did so much more with the fact that he was Makarov's son and the father of Loxes. I do like the fact that they put it son versus father, but they could have did so much more where maybe, you know, Ivan tries to get one last plot of revenge on Fairy Tail. No, it's just to build more foreshadowing to the Lumen Historia. That's it. That's just it. Other than that, his character is completely pointless. So much for the build-up way back at the start of the series, right? Anyways, the last fight of the day 3 in the Grand Magic Games is another underrated fight. And it's probably, other than, I would say, the Wendy's moment against one of the Tartarus members, I forgot his name. I remember when you did that arc, when she accessed her Dragon Force for the first time. This is probably one of my other favorite Wendy moments, if not one of the best Wendy fights, and it's rare Wendy gets fights in this series anyways. So this is the fight where she goes up against her friend, her later best friend, Shelia, who is the cousin to Sherry, and stuff like that. And we find out in this fight, Shelia is a Sky God Slayer. Also, too, fun fact, in Japan, they call it Shelia. I don't know why they, in the English dub, they changed it to Shelia, but I guess it makes more sense because Sharia sounds weird in English. So they just changed it. Let's just call her Shelia. Fun fact, since I do watch the English dub, I don't know the voice actress who plays Shelia, but if you watch the English dub anime of A Certain Scientific Railgun, obviously Wendy's voice acted by Brittany Karbowski, and Shelly is the voice actor of the chick that plays Shirai. And Brendan Karbowski plays Makoto Mizuka. So if you watch the Double Stern Scientific Railgun, I find it funny how in that show, they're friends, Makoto and Shirai. And here, Wendy and Shelly become friends. And it's like, these two characters have a lot of chemistry. I think it makes sense why Funimation probably did that because, hey, it's funny. So if you watch dubs, hey, good old time. Now, the fight for the most part is a practically even fight. That is until Wendy gets the upper hand and uses one of her new spells, which is the Sky Drill attack. And it looks like Shelly is down for the count, but she gets back up and she automatically heals herself. Now, in the meantime, Jalal's sensing this presence. He comes to the arena. He thinks that evil presence is coming from Shelia, but it's really not. It's coming from somebody else, this hooded figure that we don't know yet in the storyline. And the thing is, Shelia is like, okay, let me do my strong attack. And she does Sky God Secret Arts, Heavenly Gathering of Clouds. Now it ends up missing because Shelia because essentially, Wendy's attacks kind of affected Shelia. And then two, when she heals, Shelia only heals the physical damage. She doesn't heal anything of the stamina, which is different from Wendy. Even though Wendy can't heal herself, she has the magic to be able to, reheal your stamina. So yeah, but now the fight, it's a pretty good fight. It shows that Wendy doesn't back down, and they make a mention in the fight that Wendy doesn't like to fight a lot. Even Wendy's like, I don't like to fight a lot, but I'm doing this for my guild. And eventually the match ends in a draw. I would say this is definitely one of the best Wendy moments / Wendy fights because you literally see Wendy, and I like how when they pan over to Jura acknowledging Wendy, Jura's like, just to think that 7 years ago, she was just a crying little snot ball of a kid who was afraid of almost everything. And now she's grown up into a very brave, what he calls woman, even though technically she's literally the same age as she once was. Back then, it's just she's just matured more. So yeah, well, maybe, yeah. So that's the whole thing there. I do like that. I do like it for Wendy because it shows her like if she has to fight, she'll fight. And she has a lot of courage and determination to win, especially if it's for a guild. I like this. This is one of my favorite Wendy moments, and definitely one of my favorite Wendy battles out of like the few battles she gets in the series as a whole. And stuff like that. So, yeah. Now, Jalal eventually sees that the sinister magic is not coming from Shelia, but he sees a person in a black cloak. But Doranbolt stops him and takes off his mask, and it reveals that, guess what? It's Jalal. And even Kagura and Minerva see this. They both like, oh shit, he's here. And they both keep themselves calm and composed, like, don't attack him, don't attack him, don't attack him. But Mr. Yajima essentially gets involved, and he's like, listen, have you guys heard of the other world, Edalis? And Doranbolt and Lahar are like, yeah, we've heard of that. And he's like, well, there's a dude that looks just like him, so listen, don't worry about it. Eventually, Jalal loses the person he was trying to look for. Also, Lahar also does know that that's the real Jalal, the one that escaped, and stuff like that. Now, obviously, Fairy Tail's celebrating the wins they had during day 3. And we see, especially when we watch the anime, Levy becomes the narrator. And essentially, she speaks, she's speaking on the facts as the narrator, the fact that, well, this day, we enjoyed our peacefulness, and we enjoyed this day. I remember it just like freaking yesterday, where we enjoyed everything and stuff like that. But that day was all filled with peacefulness and happiness, but that was until that fated day of calamity hit. And obviously, as the viewer or the reader, you're like, what the hell? Are they going to get in some trouble where they all die or some shit? and stuff like that. So I like the fact that this was around the part they start building up this apparent fact that this bad thing damn near happens. You have the Arcadio storyline going on. You're like, what does this dude do? That apparently seems like he unleashes all hell on Earth then. So yeah. Loxes talks to Makarov after the games. He talks about the Lumen. He asks Makarov what the hell the Lumen Historia is. And Mavis kind of comes and says, listen, Loxes, you don't need to worry about it. It's only where the guild masters of Fairy Tail can learn that. She also is pretty upset and sad. Well, Makarov questions like, how the fuck did freaking Ivan know? He was never a master. And obviously, Mavis is probably like, it probably had to be Hades then. And she's kind of sad that it sucks that Prick had to fall to the dark side, which makes a foreshadowing, a reference that Mavis knew Hades on a personal level, which when we get to the Fairy Tail Zero arc, we'll talk about that, and stuff like that. So yeah. Also too, we also see that Yucano, speaking of Arcadios, is also in the Royal Guard. So she's immediately lost, and she's already in the Kingdom of Fiore's Royal Guard. Okay, so Arcadios is using his plot here anyways. So we get to day 4. So the next challenge is essentially a naval battle game. And essentially, it's where the last wizard in this water bubble comes up the victor. Now, the only case is after everybody else has been eliminated, there's only 2 wizards left. You have a 5-minute time limit to stay in bounds. Otherwise, if you get knocked out during this 5-minute time limit, you literally go from second place to last place. Talk about stakes. That's kind of freaking sucks. But yeah, so the participants in it are Lucy, Juvia, Minerva, Shelia, Jenny, Rocker, and Risley. Listen, Juvia kind of just literally takes them all out. Most of the other side characters, with the exception of Lucy and Minerva. Minerva then takes out Juvia, and in a way that I guess they get back for what Natsu did, Minerva literally punishes Lucy, again furthering the hate we have for Minerva as well as Sabretooth, because we also see Sabretooth actually laughing their asses off seeing this happen. And it's like, they even look at Fairy Tail and, you know, you have Natsu, Gray, and Urza like, you're going to regret pissing us off, man. And it gets to the point where Lucy's beat up so damn bad, eventually after the whole time limit thing is done. And then it's funny, because after the time limit is done, Minerva just beats up Lucy for the fun of it. And after she's done, she just is like holding her out like she's just a rag doll, essentially, and drops her on the ground like that. Essentially saying that, well, guess what? Minerva could have beat Lucy whenever she wanted. She just toyed with her just to get under Fairy Tail's skin and stuff like that. And even Urza is telling Sabretooth, and it looks like we're going to get a fight between Sabretooth and Fairy Tail here. Again, I love the fact that they build up the hatred where you want to see Sabretooth get their asses beat. And I love it. I love the build up to it. Urza warns, Sabretooth, like, the worst mistake you can make is making Fairy Tail an enemy of you, which we've seen that they do not take people lightly. Anyways, Lucy is taken to a medical room to heal up the injury she suffered in the last fight. And this is when Makar comes in. He tells them, listen, guys, because of Raventail's disqualification, there's an uneven number of, guilds, guild numbers. So guess what? The pairing up for the fights can't work. So we were told we have to combine our teams. And when we do, we have to take the team with the lowest score. And I'm like, why not just take the team with the best score? That's so stupid. But okay, that's rules are rules. And we see Fairy Tail's new team, which is Natsu, Gray, Urza, Gaggio, and Loxes, and stuff like that. Now, Darton and Arcadio see that Lucy is not on this new Fairy Tail team, and Arcadio says he's got a new plan to find a way to get her, but Darton's like, don't freaking do something, I'm gonna get pissed off. Now, we get a funny mention of the fact that Darden says that originally the Grand Magic Games in the past were not called the Grand Magic Games. Originally, they were called this thing called the Dragon King Festival, which was a banquet of dragons, humans, and demons. And we see this, I guess, Muriel picture where you have this dragon shooting this flame, and you have, this person, maybe I think using dragon slaying magic or something like that. And you have the dragon just, firing these flames off, which the dragon looks like acnologia. Looks like they're hinting on more acnologia stuff. Oh, wonderful. So yeah. Now the next battles, the next battle is the fact that they're tag battles, and we get tag battles. The first tag battle is Ichiya and Nichiya. Yes, Nichiya returns. Oh, brother. They end up fighting Quattro Puppy, and they beat Bacchus and Rocker. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It was an interesting fight for the most part, and it was Leon versus Yuka versus Kagura and Miliana. Miliana at first was taking Leon and Yuka all on their own, but eventually loses. Kagura gets involved, knocks out, utterly destroys Yuka, and gets into a fight with Kagura. But before Leon was more than likely going to lose, the bell rings and it ends up in a draw. Leon makes the mention of the fact that it seems like Kagura has something on her chest. Like, even during the fight, Leon's like, you remind me of my old self, which is back during the old Leon back in the Galuna Island incident. Essentially saying, like, you seem like you haven't gotten over something. I don't think that's going to help you. But obviously, we don't know what's on Kagura's mind and stuff like that. Also, after the match, she kind of treats Miliana kind of cold-heartedly. Honestly, she kind of came across to Miliana like a dick. And it's kind of messed up. So clearly, you're also building the fact that not only Kagura is strong, but she has this apparent thing. Two, also, along with Miliana, she's also pissed off that apparently Fairy Tail, she thinks Fairy Tail is keeping Jalal safe and stuff like that. Miliana's kind of pissed off at the fact, like, why would Urza do that, knowing what happened with Simon and everything? But we'll find out Kagura's story in the back half of the Grand Magic Games Arc 2. Now, obviously, the one matchup that ends off part 1 of the Grand Magic Games arc, as well as season 1 of the entirety of the series, season 1 of the entirety of the Fairy Tail, before they have the whole animation change and everything, is the Natsu and Gaggio fight versus Sting and Rogue. And man, can I just tell you, freaking Mashima, give a round up to this guy. He did a phenomenal job building up to this battle, man. And this battle, hands down, you give me top 10 Fairy Tail battles, this is in my top 10 battle. This is my top 10 battles for Fairy Tail. This fight was great because you have the buildup. It's finally where you have Natsu and Gaggio can finally get the revenge on Sabretooth for them being trashed by them and being humiliated by Sabretooth over and over again. And it's just a joyous occasion and stuff like that. You kind of get some philosophical, type of things with relations to Sting and Lecter and their relationship. Natsu and Lucy's relationship, by the fact that before their match, Lucy tells Natsu that I've always believed in you since we first met, since I first joined the guild and everything, which I think is another Nalu moment. No, it is a Nalu moment there. You have in this fight, freaking this, the relationship between Sting and Lecter brought up, which, later gets affected in the back half of the Grand Magic Games Arc Part 2 to close out the games and everything. The fact that you see Lecter wants to be strong for Sting and wants everybody to believe that Sting is one of the strongest guys out there. And you have the promise to where Sting's like, don't worry, I'll do you a favor, Lecter, to prove everybody wrong, that I'll defeat that salamander character, hinting at Natsu, for you and for everybody to see. And this is the thing that Sting's been waiting for. Now, Natsu and Gaggio get the upper hand on Sting and Rogue and utterly kick their ass to start the match off, and literally catching them by surprise. It's catching everybody in the crowd by surprise. Eventually, the next part of the fight is when Sting and Rogue use these magic boost power-ups which are White Drive and Shadow Drive. It looks cool. They look like they're turning they look like they're turning Super Saiyan. But I could even say that when they eventually go to their dragon, when they transform into their Dragon Force forms as well. So yeah. Now at first, Natsu and Gaggio kind of get beat up by them, but they eventually counter and they show, oh, we're stronger than we look, and stuff like that. Again, that puts Sting and Rogue in the corner, and they unleash their Dragon Force forms. And I'm talking about, they really turn Super Saiyan here. They really damn turn Super Saiyan. Their hair is sticking up and everything. They have like scales on the side of their faces. And look, their Dragon Force forms look pretty badass. Honestly, if you ask me, I like their Dragon Force forms, and I think they're more detailed than Natsu's Dragon Force form. We never seen Gaggio do his Dragon Force at all in the entire series. We see Wendy do her Dragon Force at a point in the Tartarus arc. I like her transformation of the Dragon Force as well. But the one thing we find out here with third generation Dragon Slayers for Sting and Rogue, that they can use their Dragon Force and transform it at will. With Natsu, he was only able to do it when he got a boost in his magic power thanks to the Ether Nano, or obviously Jalo giving the Flames a rebuke. And because of this, Sting eventually is like, don't worry, Rogue, I got these clowns. I'll take care of them. And he literally beats down Natsu and Gaggio with utter damn ease. To the point, he makes a whole ass crater in the stadium where the fight gets taken place underground. Like I said, he remembers his promise to Lecter, the fact that he would defeat Natsu in front of everyone to prove that he's the strongest. And when it looks like Natsu and Gaggio are down for the count, they get really back up. And when I mean they get back up and they're like, oh man, that certainly damn stung a bit, but holy shit, man. At least now we know how your attack style works and everything. So yeah, which definitely shows, and a lot of people are going to call the next part how Natsu eventually wins the fight kind of BS. But one thing I got to say and I'll say this. Just from this standpoint alone, with how quickly Natsu and Gaggio got back up and the reactions to the attack that Sting gave them, it showed that Natsu and Gaggio were superiorly stronger than Sting and Rogue. Yes, did a little bit at the end of the power friendship angle come into this? Yes, it did. But I feel like it was more from the standpoint because they literally show you when they got back up after that last shot, if they used their Dragon Force forms, after Sting beats them down in the Dragon Force forms, Natsu and Gaggio get up, back up quickly as can be, and they're just like, well, that stung a bit, but hey, now we know how to beat you guys. And it's like, people can say this is a power of friendship moment. No, because guess what? They just showed that they're stronger than they look. What they referenced earlier in the battle, and here it's a fact proven here that guess what? Natsu and Gaggio are stronger than Sting and Rogue. They were able to take full-out strikes from Dragon Force Sting and be able to get up and act like it was nothing. So they're clearly stronger than them. And it definitely makes sense for Natsu's case because he unlocked his second origin, and makes sense why he would be significantly stronger, his magic stronger than Sting and Rogue. So what happens is Natsu pushes down Gaggio in a minecart, which eventually takes him to the dragon graveyard we see at the end. And Natsu essentially takes on Sting and Rogue by himself. Now, obviously, we know the reason why. Now, when I first watched them, I'm like, why are they having this fight already when there's going to be one more day? We later find out why. They let Natsu get his W, and they save Gaggio's W for later against Rogue. So he literally takes he literally is like, come on, bring it on. I'm ready to fight. Cutting away from the fight a bit, Jalal senses the evil magic again, and we see the person in the cloaks watching this fight happening, and the person in the cloak is apparently crying. We don't know why, but this person's apparently crying, and that alerts Jalal to be like, that magic presence is back. Anyways, Natsu fights both Sting and Rogue. He is literally kicking their ass with ease. So again, to point out the fact that Natsu is significantly stronger than Sting and Rogue combined, here's your evidence of why he was able to overcome the damn Unison Raid. He's literally stronger than them. If Natsu is literally kicking Sting and Rogue's ass that easy, utter ease, that would tell you as the viewer or the watcher, Natsu's stronger than these guys. And he's doing this, and they're stronger, and they're using Dragon Force combined, and they can't defeat him. One, I was loving this whole thing when Natsu was kicking their asses and everything. This moment you have Lecter crying like, they're not gonna do it. We get a nice moment where it flashes from Natsu before his fight talking to Happy, and essentially it's the whole thing of where, it's essentially Happy's way of saying, I always believe in you, Natsu, and I know you're going to win. And he's like, yeah, I know. So Sting and Rogue, their backs are against the corner. They do a unison raid between their white and shadow dragon magic. But Natsu does a Crimson Lotus exploding flame blade that just completely obliterates and overpowers their unison raid. Look, if you want to feel that's BS, fine. You're more than inclined. But they show in the fight, even leading up to this 2-on-1 matchup, that Natsu is significantly stronger than Sting and Rogue. And they even mentioned in the episode, Urza says that the stronger Natsu's opponents are, the stronger Natsu gets progressively during the battle. Now, you can say that's some BS, and you can say you're just defending bullshit. I don't care. It was a cool-ass, badass moment, and when you finally see Sting and Rogue finally just say, fuck, we lost. I'm sorry, Lecter. I lost. And you see them finally go down. You see Natsu come out the victor. You feel like some sort of accomplishment. I also like the scene building up when they were doing the Unison Raid and Natsu was about to do its Crimson Lotus exploding flame blade. They did the callback from the Battle of Fairy Tail arc when every Fairy Tail character was sticking their hand up in the air because they're all a collective guild together. And they want to see their guildmate overcome because they're right behind him through this, and they're right there watching this. And it was a badass moment. It was a cool moment where you have Natsu standing over Sting and Rogue, essentially having his dominance over both of them, essentially alerting Minerva and telling Minerva shit. Even Minerva's like, damn, he really could have taken out our master, my dad, which I forgot to mention. The master of Fairy Tail Gemma is Minerva's father. Forgot to completely do that. So it was a great moment. The fight lived up to the hype, and it was just a cool, epic way to end the fight. I don't know where I'll rank it in my Fairy Tail fights, but it's definitely up there in my top 10 because the buildup was so damn good and everything. So yeah, because of this win, it finally puts Fairy Tail in first place by 1 point. So that 1 point really helped, which I loved how they paid that 1 point line Gaggio said earlier in the arc to Sting that, well, guess what? That 1 point mention. And I love the fact that Fairy Tail has 45 points and Sabretooth has 44 points. And I love the fact that they paid it off like that. So yeah. So for the time being, the games are over. The judges say the next day is going to be a day off, and coming back will be the final day of the Grand Magic Games, where it will be a whole team battle to determine the winner of the Grand Magic Games. So yeah, now we cut over to Gaggio. Gaggio, we see, ends up in a graveyard full of bones of dragons, and he's in a dragon graveyard. We cut over to Yucano saying that, like I said earlier in the video, telling one of the royal guards that Arcadius is trying to do his best to save the world. And we see Levy again as the narrator talking in a future sense, saying that after the final day of the games, everything changed from that point on, and everything they fought for in the Grand Magic Games all went to ash. And if you're watching this, I don't know, again, how it's portrayed in the manga because I don't read the manga Fairy Tail. But in the anime, you just see this apocalyptic type of freaking world, I guess someplace in the future after the events of the Grand Magic Games. And you have it to where you see Levy in this basement with a cut up Fairy Tail flag, essentially all cut up, all bruised and battered, freaking crying, saying, I can't write this shit anymore because this is so fucked up. And she says, everyone's practically fucking dead. So something happens after the Grand Magic Games where everybody dies, and Jalal also is catching up in the meantime to the hooded individual in the cloak, and they don't show who it is. He makes a mention that it's a girl, and he gives his face like, it can't be, and stuff like that. But the way the anime ends up with, we seen, I'm guessing in the future, what apparently happens, and we see Levy, and that's where in the anime they leave it off with a to be continued, and that's how the first half of the Grand Magic Games arc ends. And that's it. So what a cliffhanger, especially if you're watching the anime. Now, it's funny enough, I'll bring this up in my part 2 of the Grand Magic Games, but have you watched this as the Fairy Tail anime was airing? The people who were watching this as the Fairy Tail anime was airing had to wait a whole year to see the next part of Fairy Tail. And the next part of Fairy Tail has a different animation change and everything. So I like the fact that they ended it off on a hook like that, because it's like you leave it on a hook in the Grand Magic Games arc, which makes it feel like the Grand Magic Games arc is definitely split into 2 different parts. Most definitely, like I'm doing here for my video. And I like the whole thing is like, what the hell is going on? Because I remember when I was first watching this, was like, what is going on? And again, when I start off my part 2 video, I'll even make a mention during my first playthrough or my first watch through of Fairy Tail, what I also experienced there too. So yeah, but in terms of the first half of the Grand Magic Games arc, I loved it. I enjoyed it. I loved the whole build up to the Fairy Tail versus Sabretooth fight. I thought they did that excellent. I honestly think the Fairy Tail Grand Magic Games arc, like I said, as a whole, is a great arc in its entirety. Here was the build-up arc to build up not only the tension between Fairy Tail and Sabretooth, as well building up to the eventual back half of the arc of what happens later in the back half of the arc here. And it was definitely fun to rewatch this, seeing all the guilds again and stuff like that. And one thing I do like about the Grand Magic Games arc is they introduce so many new characters that eventually come back in the later arcs of the Fairy Tail arc and stuff like that, of the Fairy Tail arcs in the future, which is definitely cool. I like the fact that they had this whole build-up. Oh, who's the person in the cloak? Yada yada yada. I love the fact that they kind of do a bait and switch type of tease. You think Arcadios is really a bad guy, but at the end you have Yucano say, "Well, he's trying to save the world," and you're like, "Then really, who the hell is the bad guy here? What the hell is going on here?" Unless he's like some secret betrayed type of dude. And I definitely like this. The build up, and that's what the first part was is kind of a conjunction of. Just build up to these moments in these arcs, and you get a lot of great moments in the first half of the arc. Elfman versus Bacchus, great moment. You know, Natsu and Sting, freaking Natsu and Gaggio talking to Sting, telling him, you know, we're doing this for our friends who had to suffer those 7 years. Great moment. Wendy versus Shelia, great moment. The moment when Natsu tells Lucy, oh, 0 points? I think we're in a great position. We're going to make the greatest comeback ever. Great moment. This arc, I tell you, man, just the first half of this arc has so many great moments that hit you so damn hard. It can make you damn near cry. Like, literally, you know, Natsu, you know, winning, beating Sting and Rogue. If you're very invested into these characters, you can literally, I can see somebody crying because it's like, these dudes have to suffer, and they finally beat the #1 dude. They finally have some sort of solace where they overcame the odds. Although they haven't won the games in its entirety, they still have to go out there and win. But this was a phenomenal first half of an arc. I've already told you. I've only made one mention point of one thing I hated, and that was the Ivan Raventail angle. Everything else, I have enjoyed. I have praised her. This is why I say Grand Magic Games is my second favorite arc, but it's definitely up there close to maybe even overthrowing my favorite arc, which is Tartaros. Of the fact that I love this arc. I love this arc. This is why I say this is one of the best arcs in Fairy Tail. That's the reason why the video game literally is adapted from it. This was a great arc. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. If you guys like the video, leave a like, put in the comment section your thoughts on the first half of the Grand Magic Games arc. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Is the Grand Magic Games arc one of your favorite arcs in Fairy Tail? Again, hit that subscribe button if you want to get more Fairy Tail arc reviews. I'm going forward. And when you do hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit that notification bell icon to make sure you're up to date with whatever I upload to the channel. So next Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be finishing off the Grand Magic Games arc next week, which is the back half of the arc, which gets into the last final game of the Grand Magic Games, as well as getting to the Dragon King Festival arc type of stuff with Future Rogue and all that nonsense and stuff like that in the back half of the arc. So that will come next week. The week after, I would be doing the Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc, but fun fact, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be reviewing the Fairy Tail movie, Phoenix Priestess, movie number 1, because it fits in the timeline between those points anyways. So look forward to hearing my review on the Fairy Tail movie. After that will be the Eclipse Celestial Spirits filler arc that I cannot wait to talk about, or I don't want to talk about. Hell, I'm not looking forward to watching that shit again. I just realized in my Fairy Tail rewatch, I have to rewatch that horrible arc all over again. Then after that arc, the Fairy Tail Zero arc, which gets into the backstory of Mavis. I believe that's an anime-only arc as well. Or no. Next up after that arc is going to be the Sun Village arc. Then Tartaros arc will be 2 parts, and then after that will be the Fairy Tail Zero arc, which after Fairy Tail, at that point, you know what happens to them. It covers the backstory of Mavis. Then I'll talk about the Avatar arc. Then I'll review Fairy Tail Movie 2, Dragon Cry. And then I'll split up, ending the arc reviews off with the 2 Alvarez Empire reviews. Now, fun fact, as of this moment of me recording this video, I am, in terms of the arc reviews, clearly you've already known this, but if you want to know where I was at, clearly I made a lot of progress, which means I've been watching a lot of Fairy Tail. Like the last video uploaded to YouTube was the Loki / Tower of Heaven arc. So fun fact, if you guys wanted to know in background in terms of this recording where I was at, that's how far I am. I'm literally like halfway done with the series. So yeah, other than that, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully you guys can't wait for next week's video to where we talk about the closing out of the Grand Magic Games arc. Till then, guys, have a great rest of your day. Peace.